Okay, so so now basically what we've got, and again, if you come up, this is pretty much where you navigate from all the time. It is indeed possible to simply go back to your OneDrive application, the actual application itself, and do this same work. But the little menu item that's sitting up here is I find it's the easiest way to navigate. It's always up there. So if you click on this drop-down menu, there's a couple of questions that came up, and I want to answer them really quickly. And one was, I think it is the best policy because you can see the confusion that we're dealing with right now in terms of where it's looking for all of this stuff. My suggestion is best policy is that a student have their laptop to start this whole process and to install the application on their laptop, connect their hard drive, and have this all happen there. I don't think you want anybody to set up on one of these workstations right here and then try to migrate that to their laptop. It's possible, but it is a world of hurt. So does that make sense, everyone? So let's just keep...
Where they can't even do that?
Say what?
Aren't these going to be locked where they can't even...
They probably will be, which just makes it worse because then you're going to get in the middle of trying to get this set up, and it isn't for the students who have their own laptops. It'll go great. For those who don't, they'll be sitting here going, well, why doesn't it work, whatever, and you'll be in the same shoes that I'm in right now. Make sense? So clearly, had I thought this through a little bit better, I would have had all of you bring your own laptops and do this. I apologize for that. I thought we could make it simpler, but there you go. We're all accustomed to this. So at any rate. However, there's a couple of things that I want to talk about and set up here really quick. So if you come up to that same little icon up at the top, you'll also note, well, you'll see it right here. So we've got the open folder. Again, this is local. We've got the view online. This is your online view. And again, if you now click on the online view, you should see a folder. You should actually see your Lightroom library folder should be sitting right here. And if it's not, we have a problem. So does everybody have it? Okay, so the sync thing is in place. So I'm going to actually ask you to go back to the Finder again. Let's go back up to the top again. Click on that guy one more time. So that's how you access your online stuff, and this is how you access your local stuff. If you click on this little button that says More, this will bring up your preferences, and you can actually see here there's a number of things that we can do. If we actually click on the preference folder right here, again, you'll see that you can open the local version. That's what this guy is. You can open the online version. That's what this guy is. These are simply reiterations of what is sitting right down here. But if you click on preferences, you'll actually open up, and there's a few preferences that we can do. There's not really many of them. In most cases, you want to leave this simply at its default settings. So this open at login, you want to make sure that stays enabled. Again, we're not going to change. We're changing next to nothing in this. The reason you want this open at login is it simply means that every time a student starts their computer, it automatically launches this software and the sync thing is in place. So you don't have to do anything. Make sense? If for some reason you want, and they've also got this checked, hide the dock icon, because this is an application that's always running, typically it would show up down here in your dock or wherever you put your dock on whatever side. I always leave mine on the bottom. It'll show up down here. This will be permanent down here. That's redundant. You've got this permanent version of it that's sitting right up here in the menu. You don't need another version of it that's sitting right down here. This is just showing that it's running. And then finally, the warn me before removing files from the cloud. This is a safety, and what it basically is saying, because these two folders now are in sync with one another. So anything you do in one is reflected in the other. So if you throw something away locally, it's thrown away in the cloud. If you throw away something in the cloud, it's thrown away locally. Does that make sense? You can actually add files to your cloud version, and it will add them to your hard drive. So it's constantly in sync. What you do to one is going to happen to the other. So this warning is probably a good thing to leave on. And the only thing that happens is that when you go to throw something away in the cloud, you get this warning saying, are you sure this is what you want to do? There's also a redundant thing in there I'll show you in just a second. If you click on Account, this thing will open up. This is where Microsoft gets to sell you more storage. This is one of the things that I hate about Adobe, and it's one of the things I also hate about Microsoft. They really could care less about helping you out and backing up your files. They just want you to run out of room so that they can market more space to you. So if you all of a sudden have a student who's got a 5 terabyte hard drive, and they go over the terabyte of storage, the limit that the school is buying for them, this is where they get to add more storage. Great. There's other things that you can do in here if you actually want to move your account to another hard drive or whatever. You ultimately have to unlink your Mac. There's a whole, again, we'll look through it really quickly in the PDF that we've got about setting all this up. There's a way to move your folder to another machine, to move it to another hard drive, to get it to resync again, whatever. It's a very long, involved process, and this is where that process starts. This is where you can also temporarily stop syncing. It sits right here. Again, none of these things do you want to do. You don't want to do any of this. I'm just pointing it out to you. The network in here, you don't want to change anything in here in these network settings. The only reason that we would want to change something here would be if IT came to us and said, we need to modify we need to throttle down your syncing process, whatever. All of this otherwise stays the way it exactly is at its defaults. The next thing down, again, it's all going to stay at its defaults. This is where you can see, though, that you can actually use the Office applications to work on Office files that you upload to this. This doesn't really apply to us. I mean, again, if somebody put a Word file up on there or put a Word file into this partition and it got synced up online, you could use the online versions of Word or Excel or PowerPoint to actually modify the stuff that's online. Because in our case right now, all the stuff that goes up online, we cannot directly modify that. We cannot make any change to that. It is backup for us. Does that make sense, everyone? Okay. And then finally, the about thing you don't care about. So again, my suggestion to you is that you leave this all at its defaults unless somebody has a very specific reason to change something in that. So again, I've lost where I'm supposed to be in here, so I'm going to go back up to that little drop-down menu, and I'm going to click to open my folder again, and I see it right here. This is my Lightroom library, and if I click on that, I've got these three folders that are inside that. So that's worked for everyone, right? Do you guys have little check marks next to yours now, or no? Which is weird because these are indicators that it actually has been synced, and it may just take some time in terms of the setup. So again, all I can say is that when you click on this initial one, you actually get this check mark at the top. Do you guys have this check mark at this stage of the game that says all of your files are synced? So Maria, if you actually click on the view online, do you actually see the library online? Yeah. Huh. Yeah, well, you can probably thank Mojave for that. I can look into that and see if there's a reason that we can find out. I like the visual checks myself. I like to know that it's actually happened. Okay, so our next move in here is to actually go ahead and build our Lightroom catalog, our initial catalog. So again, this is a step that you would do with every student here. So I'm going to go back to this process right now. So this is still the OneDrive setup right here. And so this is actually, I just want to get you through the rest of this. If we take a look at the app, you'll see that it's telling you that it's running up here. And all the stuff that I've just spoken about is sitting right here. If you click on that app, it opens up here. You can see your view online. You can see your online folder. You can actually check through all this. We've already gone through all of this. Oh, we need to click on the more one more time. So go back to this guy because we only got through preferences. So click on the little icon that's at the top and get this drop down window right here. Click on more. So we've gotten through preferences. Again, view online is just the same thing as right down here, view online. You can pause syncing. Now, personally, I don't feel like there's any reason to do that. Again, there are certain reasons. If we're trying to move the folders to a different location, there's a possibility that you would want to pause syncing. But hopefully this isn't going to be an issue, that this is not going to come up, that we're going to not to have to deal with this. There are instructions, if we look through the rest of this, about how to move these folders. But like I say, it's kind of complicated. Manage storage, again, is simply a way for Microsoft to actually sell you more storage. So that's all that's really going on here. This also takes you to everything that Columbia is actually giving to us. So in what we are getting here in all of this stuff, they've got, I don't know for certain about this, but I think this is where things like they're moving to a new system for troubleshooting software or troubleshooting equipment, and they're calling it, maybe they call it Team Dynamics. They call it Team Dynamics. I think there's material that's going to show up in here, but basically this is your Columbia Drive. Anything that you're actually storing on this is going to live here, and this is where it actually sits. Now again, don't really believe that you should actually be logging in and trying to modify stuff from this unless you're old school and you really understand how this whole thing works. But you'll see it's a place where your documents are stored, whatever. This will give you an indication of how much of your storage has actually been used. And you can see in my case, it doesn't think very much of mine has been used. But you'll also see this is that 1 terabyte of data that you're actually able to get. So at any rate, that's what that part is. Again, I'm going to go back really fast to that icon. Click on more again, so that gets us through. This is the get help. Again, that's exactly what it is. Send feedback. This is where you can tell them exactly what you think about them. And then this, you can actually quit your OneDrive setup. And again, I wouldn't really suggest doing this. There's no real fundamental reason to do this. Again, this starts to get you, when you're again moving the location of one of these 2 sync folder. You can't move the one that's online, but when you're moving the one that's actually local, you have to go through this whole process of stopping the program, of stopping syncing, then you actually move the folder, and then you reconnect it, and then you restart syncing, and it's really involved. But anyway, that's what this is right here. And so at least at the initial stage of the game, I would suggest that you don't even let students know that more exists. Are there any questions about this? Okay. So the next thing we're going to go to is actually build the catalog inside our Lightroom library. So I'm going to go back to our folder. So this is, I'm going to continue. This is the OneDrive setup. We're going through here. This explains what everything that I just explained to you is here. And then again, this is the takeaway from all of this, is that your OneDrive really acts like any other folder on your Macintosh. You copy files to it, you can delete files from it, and it is all reflected in what's going on in the cloud. That part just stays connected. You can also you can get access to your OneDrive file up in the cloud. You can actually work on it with your cell phone, with a tablet, with another computer. You can actually log into it. To do that, you need to access your OneDrive from a web browser. Now, in our case right now, even though we are clicking on this thing and saying view online, and it goes into whatever web browser, I use Chrome, and it shows up here, that is not the only way you can access this. So without that application at all on a computer, so on a completely different computer, you can actually log into it. And the way you do that, again, is you would go to this web address right here, and you would actually log in using your Columbia email and your password, and then you simply click on the OneDrive icon and you have access to it. So you can access it from a phone, you can access it from another computer, from a tablet that is not running OneDrive. Now you only have access to it. You're not syncing anything, but you do have access to it. You can throw it all away, you can do all that kind of stuff. Does that sort of make sense? Okay. So this goes again through setting preferences, everything that's in here, what this is all talking about. This explains what a linking is going to actually do. Let me see what this whole thing is started about. Changing the location. So we're now on page 7. If you do need to change the location, so you've got a student who's screwed this up, and they've actually built a location right here, and it needs to move to another thing. This is the recipe you follow. We're not going to go through this part. If they need to do it, this is really self-explanatory. If you really run into a problem with all of this, then that sounds like something you need to get. If you can't follow this, that's something that you need to get in with IT. But there's no reason that we need to go through these steps right now. But this is how you would move your local syncing your local syncing folder to another folder, to someplace else. Does that make sense? Okay, so you go through that whole part of it. So again, you're changing it all again. It'll take you through step by step by step. It'll show you, it'll set it all up again and say, okay, it's ready to go. Show it to me again. And then we're right back to game 1 again. Just make sure that these files are loaded in here and we're good to go. So I'm going to put this warning up right here. I'm just going to read it because I don't really remember what it says. Changing your OneDrive folder is not recommended, as it breaks that syncing link between your local hard drive and your online backup. Unless you're really careful, you could actually lose all of your files. And here's the trick. This is the problem. So let's say I'm going to do this on the I'm not going to do it on the whiteboard really quickly. You can sort of see it. Yeah, I'm going to do it on this whiteboard really fast. You won't hear this on the video, but you will hear this on the video. So this is where the liability is. Somebody tell me there is a marker somewhere. Yeah. So here's the issue. Right now you've got your computer right here. So this is local computer. And then you've got the cloud up here. And so on this guy, you've got, on this thing right here, you've got your folder. So this is your OneDrive folder. And this is your OneDrive online. On the cloud. And let's say you've got 500 gigabytes of data on this, and it's mirrored with 500 gigabytes of data here. And everything's fine. The syncing is going back and forth between these guys, and that's not a problem. If you then decide you want to change that location, so let's say we're going to change the location, and I'm going to move this instead of my local computer, I'm going to put it on a hard drive, a different hard drive, a second hard drive. So we'll call it second hard drive. And this is now going to be my OneDrive, local folder, and it's empty. And I set it up to sync. Well, it's empty. It kills that 500 gigabytes. It's synced an empty folder. Yeah, that's kind of a rub. So the trick to it is, if you're going to move this guy, you actually need to move the folder first. You need to move the thing that's got all the data. This 500 gigabytes of data has to be moved to the new one, and then you sync it, and they will have the same information on that. But again, this is dangerous. So all I'm saying is that I'm just trying to make you guys aware of that sort of whole situation. Did that make sense to everybody? Are there questions about that? Yeah. Okay, guys, we're almost done with this, and then we're simply going to go look at printing. And then those of you who can get out, can get out. Okay, so again, this warning is, again, really strongly suggest. So what I'm saying in this warning, what I'm suggesting people to do is, if you want to do this, moving your folder, make a third copy of your files to an external hard drive. So instead of even doing that copy over part, don't worry about that. Simply make another copy, another hard drive copy of this guy right here. Copy this to something that you can hang on to for a while to make sure everything has worked. So this right here gets copied to a backup hard drive as insurance. And then when you see that all of the syncing is working and that all your files are there, you can lose that backup. But until then, you need to actually do that. So that's what it's saying here, is it strongly suggests that you make a third copy of your files before you start this process. Okay. Last couple of things here, troubleshooting. So here, if it's not automatically syncing here, you need to make sure that you need to go through these steps. So it's troubleshooting as much as I can actually develop troubleshooting to sort of show you what's going on here. And let me do this really quick. And again, it'll walk you through the things that you actually need to do to troubleshoot to make sure that everything is turned on the way it's supposed to be turned on. You can get a series of messages like this. This is one of the problems. If you've got a student who is actually launching their computer and they don't have their hard drive connected, this warning can come up, because what's happening is that the computer is looking for the local drive and the drive that's up in the cloud. And if you haven't connected your hard drive to this, you're going to get this message that's actually going to come up. So the solution to this is to connect your hard drive and click try again. If for some reason you've lost your hard drive, then you would go through the whole setup OneDrive again part right here. But this is what will ultimately happen, so it's just something to be aware of. if you need to remove OneDrive from your hard drive, this is what I needed to do. If you need to remove OneDrive from your computer in order to have a fresh install, these are the files you need to find to do it. Yeah. Do you think, are you kidding me? Like, I'm really going to go after every one of those? So for me, what I do, just so that you guys know, you can actually see this part here, I actually have, and I don't remember, I want to say this is free. I have no idea if it's not. I have this application called App Cleaner. If you click on, I'm going to put App Cleaner here. If you actually drag your OneDrive, or you can, and this is true of anything, and it's not the only program that does this. I'm not here to sell software. It's not the only program here that does this. But I'm going to take my OneDrive right here, and I'm actually going to drag it onto App Cleaner, and you'll see what happens. I'm going to get a warning in the beginning because it's telling me that it can't do it because it's actually the program itself is running. So it can't actually do that part. So I'm going to click out of this and I'm going to quit App Cleaner and I'm going to change it. My OneDrive is actually running right now. And in order to uninstall it, it can't be running. So again, up to the little OneDrive icon, down to More, and you can quit OneDrive. And it's going to say to you, if you really want to quit this, you're going to stop the syncing. And I'm going to say, that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and quit it. And then again, drag OneDrive down to App Cleaner, and it will populate your screen with everything that it needs to get rid of, and you simply click Remove. So even if that's a $15 program, that to me is worth every penny as opposed to having to go and find every one of these files, which again, it just seems obscenely wrong to me. I'm going to hit cancel out of that. I am going to then launch again because now I've quit OneDrive. To get it to go again, you simply double click on it and it just launches the application. You'll see it's sitting right up here now again, just like it was before, and you can see when I click on the drop down menu, everything is syncing. And again, if I click on this, I have the option to quit it again, but I don't want to quit it. Are there questions about this? I know it seems like a lot, guys, but I'll be honest with you. I've been playing with this now pretty much the whole summer long. It gets a whole lot better. There's relatively few options that you really need to pay attention to. Once it's set up, if you basically leave it alone, it does its job and it does it really well, and you don't have to worry about it. And then you're basically back to focusing on what we've always had here, and it's basically Lightroom, working with Lightroom on an external hard drive, and that's what we've always done here, and you're good to go. Make sense? Hi. Don't worry, you're sort of here at a good time. You've missed the Lightroom part, but it's all been recorded, and I'll send links out to it. I'm not the Lightroom part, the OneDrive part. That's the part.
That's the thing I don't know.
I know. So the videos exist for this, and I'll send them to you. And just if you have any questions, just let me know. Okay, what I had something in my. Oh, so. The last thing that we're going to do here really quickly is we're actually going to go ahead and set up the Lightroom catalog. So if we go back to, you can, if you've got your OneDrive setup thing open, that was the end of it all. We're down through the troubleshooting, how to remove it, and then again, if you remove it, then you simply start up at the very top again about how to reinstall it. We go right up to the very beginning and you just start to reinstall again. So that's sort of the whole circle of OneDrive. So again, everybody good on this? Are any questions about this? Okay, you can close that one up. Now we're back into the Lightroom workflow, and this is the part that we've actually got. And again, this is what we've always done before, and we're still going to do exactly the same thing again. It's really pretty basic as far as this goes. However, I've got a note in here that this workflow contained in this PD is referring to Lightroom Classic CC only. Remember now, there are two versions of Lightroom that exist now, in addition to the number of version 7, version 8, version 6. I mean, there are two functioning versions of Lightroom. If you go to, this is my, I'll show you really quickly. Where is my Adobe? That's not it. I don't have my little Adobe guy up here. Let me launch this really quickly. My Adobe Desk Manager, Creative Cloud guy. That's what I want. So in my Creative Cloud part, in my apps right here, you can see this is the whole list of apps that's available to us. If we continue to scroll down, you will see that there is a thing that's just called Lightroom, the cloud-based photo service that should be thrown in the garbage. And if Adobe's listening, shame on you for such a shitty piece of software. You should be shot. That's how I really feel. I'm not holding back at all. If you continue to scroll down, you have this Lightroom Classic and Lightroom Classic CC, just to make it more complicated, because this Lightroom Classic is simply a 0.1 upgrade from the one before it. But nonetheless, both of these exist. This is the one that we work with in Columbia. This is the one that you actually want to use. It's desktop based. It will download this stuff to your desktop and you run it from your desktop. So the cloud, so again, this one that is online is also launched from your desktop, but it takes you into a space that's up in the cloud that allows you to work with images in the cloud. They don't have to be on your computer local. But again, it's just the worst. It's dumbed down software. You can't print from it. You can't. There's a whole host of things that you can't do that you can do in regular Lightroom. So there's simply, at least for the time being, simply no reason. So if you've got a student who's actually already downloaded this and is using it, you need to get them off of it and you need to get them into a regular Lightroom situation. So to actually finish up this whole process for us, we need to launch Lightroom. So I need you guys to actually go to your application folder. I'm going to quit mine really quickly.
Aren't we using Lightroom Classic CC?
Yes, but now they've removed the CC.
Oh, so the updated version doesn't have the CC?
Exactly.
Oh, that's not confusing at all.
Not at all. But it's really funny when we get into doing the printing thing. They've actually, Canon has changed a lot of the way the language that they use in their manual. So now they've got all of their manuals that have been printed out has one set of language for the pieces of the printer, but the new drivers have a completely different language.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Don't worry, we'll get to that. Okay, so I am going to launch Lightroom, but before you launch Lightroom, I want you to hold down the Option key again. If you take a look at the PDF in here, this is what we should have been. You will have seen this will have been going on all along. So it says, find the icon in the dock for your application. If you don't have it in the dock, simply find it in your application folder. Hold down the Option key first, which is this illustration right here, and click Lightroom. So again, I'm hovering over. This is my application right here. I'm holding down Option and clicking on Lightroom, and the reason you want to do that is that it opens up this ability to create a new catalog. So for students who've already got catalogs and camera files, if the student has already been working in this, they simply move all of that to the local OneDrive folder. So if you've already got this set up, I'll show you what I mean really quickly. In my case, I've already got this set up. So in my pictures folder, I've already got this whole Lightroom thing set up. So I would go down to Lightroom. It's this Lightroom library right here, and you can see I've got my camera files, catalog files, export. You would simply copy this entire thing onto your Creative Cloud. So again, instead of having this Lightroom library right here, I would get rid of this one because it's empty. And because I already had an existing one, I would simply drag this entire thing onto that local partition, and you're good to go. It'll put everything up on the cloud. It'll know you've moved it. It'll know where it is, the whole 9 yards. Does that make sense? But if you're starting from scratch with a brand new student, again, in this Lightroom part right here, you can see that you can create a new catalog, and that's what we're going to do. And we're just going to call this one Toss, so that you guys create it and then throw it away, because you don't want to really this. We're just doing this for exercise purposes, so I don't want to screw up your OneCloud. So I'm going to simply hit Create New Catalog, and I'm going to call it Toss. And then you need to navigate to the setup that we have actually got. So again, we're navigating to our OneDrive, Columbia, Chicago, into the Lightroom library, into the catalog. This is where we're going to put the Toss catalog is going to go right in here. And then simply hit Create. Lightroom will then open up. Yes? but it still should run. No, you need to hold down the Option key first. So quit that guy. Quit that guy again. Okay, only the Option key, right? Option and click on that guy again. That's not even opening. So there is something wrong with this version of it. Was this working for the rest of you guys?
I have CC versus.
Yeah, CC is fine. So yeah, I mean, that's fine.
Okay.
So did he give you the option to create a new catalog?
Yeah, it did.
Okay, that's fine. It's just for an else, this computer will not load Lightroom at all. So this computer needs to be fixed. What number is this guy? 10. So it's just a note for Gia that they've got to go in and look at that. So this worked for everyone else though, correct? Okay, hang on one second.
So what did it save it at? I know it's as tall, but where are we saving it? Where?
So you're saving it to that Lightroom Library Catalog folder that we set up on your OneDrive. So here it is on your OneDrive setup, and it goes into, again, the Lightroom Library inside the Catalog folder. And you will see inside there, you should end up with a little thing that says TOS, and it'll have your Lightroom files in there, your Lightroom management. If you click on TOS, you'll see it's got the database setting, it's got everything in there that you actually need. It's the Lightroom catalog. Make sense? Okay, hang on one second. I gotta take Gia, it's number 10, right, Brunel? Okay. And then, guys, you're simply off to the races. It's the same thing from now on. So again, if you take a look at the whole workflow right here, it talks about, okay, you've gone ahead and created this thing. And again, it's just showing you to create a new catalog. It's telling you where to put it. And this is based on wherever you would have a Lightroom catalog. So this is all that, it just showing where all of this part is, to put it in there, to name it something that's meaningful. This is actually named something that's meaningful. You'll see that you've got those support files in there, all of that. So we're going to continue to go down through all of this to see where things start next. So once you're in Lightroom right now, again, we will do this thing. We will look at this in detail in the afternoon if there's still anybody who wants to go through this part. But this now part of this PDF is simply showing you how to set all the preferences up. So there's hundreds of preferences in Lightroom. This walks you through each and every one of those preferences, which again is something that you should do with your students, especially if they're, well, in any student, they should still troubleshoot this stuff to make sure that Lightroom is actually set up to function well for them, and that it's not giving them a false sense. Because when I talk about false sense, one of the things about setting this up is that you can actually have Lightroom set up to do backups for you, and every student in the world believes that it's backing up all their raw files, and it isn't. It's backing up the database in Lightroom, but there is no backup of your raw files. So again, this preference walkthrough, as exhaustive as it is important, because otherwise things can happen that can compromise. And again, for the hour that you spend doing this, if you save a student losing, 2 years worth of work, is probably worth everything. So as we continue to go through, this is still just setting up preferences. Now we get to workflow here. No, this is actually still in preferences part. No, it is not. This is identical, and this is exactly what we went through last semester, verbatim.
Okay.
So if you're comfortable with that, you can blow all this off. I'm really go through this in the afternoon for anybody who wants to.
Oh, okay.
And you're welcome to say if you want a refresher.
No, I'm
So
interested in this OneDrive.
Yeah.
I know you don't want to repeat things, but our big picture, are the kids using OneDrive as their hard drive?
No. It does not work that way.
Oh, okay.
You can't work on it. The problem is that
Because it's cloud-based.
it's cloud-based. You cannot, no application can change anything actually on the cloud. You would have to download it first, change it, and put it back up.
Oh, so do you download OneDrive?
No.
onto your
Yes,
server?
you do. And so what we are doing now is we are having a local copy. We can't get rid of the hard drive. We've got a local copy of your Lightroom catalog, and we are using the cloud strictly as a backup. OneCloud is now just a backup solution.
But what if kids don't have a hard drive? They still, you just back it up every time when you finish? Or something?
It's automatic. It's seamless.
Oh, but
And a kid has to have a hard drive, or they have to do it on their computer local, one or the other.
Okay.
I know you've been a huge champion of trying to get away from this.
Yeah.
We actually managed to find 2 vendors that sell terabyte hard drives for under $50. So I will send that out to everybody. Ross is going to send this out to everybody because that's really who I put it with.
Solid state.
Yeah, you can get all sorts of things, whatever, but unfortunately we could not escape that because it's the storage in the cloud that's driving this. It's not us. So it's the same thing happening with Adobe. If you want to, I'd be happy to talk to you at lunch. We can look at a couple things. Okay. So anyway, that's all what's going on here. And so then we get into importing and all of that kind of stuff. We'll talk about all of that in the afternoon for anybody who wants to stay and go through that. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay, are there questions about this? So if you go back now to your Finder, and again, go to your OneCloud dropdown, you'll actually see that there's stuff that's sitting on this. These are the files that just got recently uploaded to it. So this is, again, or other things that are going on here. These are Lightroom presets that are all existing here. It's all a part of what's going on in the whole Lightroom settings group right here. Again, if you click on online folder, I'm sorry, just the folder itself, the OneDrive open folder right here, it shows you this catalog. It shows you where everything is actually sitting right here. So again, it's taking me to this Lightroom library. Inside of that is my catalog. Inside is TOS. All the settings are in here. If you then go back to that same OneDrive and come down to say, show this to me online, you should actually have all of this has been synced up online. So if you click on your library to open it up, you'll actually see inside of it is your camera files, is your catalogs, or your exports. If you click on catalogs, it opens up and shows you, again, your TOS folder. This is what we named our catalog was TOS. If you click to open that up, all of this is sitting up in there, and we didn't do anything to sync it up except set it up in the beginning. And then this is just automatic. Make sense to everyone? So that's kind of why we're going down this road. So the way to think about this is that our system primarily has unchanged from last semester. We are simply employing OneDrive as a backup solution that is automatic, so that you don't have students losing files, folders, hard drive crashes. It doesn't matter as long as it's the one that has been synced to the cloud. But other than that, there is no advantage to this, in at least as far as the photo department specific goes. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, are there questions about this? Okay, so I'm going to stop the video now because we're going to go out in the print room and we're actually just going to go through printing from both Photoshop and Lightroom. There's a couple of tricks that I want to show everybody. Again, there's PDFs that explain everything. There are these PDFs right here. So for you guys who've actually, let me stop this video because you don't need to hear all this. Yes, because things have been updated and these are no longer good. There were some mistakes in this as well. No shot again.